a vessel to be used. Here I am, a vessel to be used. Here I stand, ready for love to lead me. Yes, let's breathe into that. To be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake. Pema Chodron says to be that is to be continually thrown out of the nest. Yikes. So last week, talked all about change, divine discontent, focusing on the divine portion of that phrase, right? And that change is good and moving into it. So let's pick up that conversation. Let's continue it. Let's continue to talk about this transformation of the soul that we are continually having an opportunity to engage in. And let's talk about it this morning from the angle of leaning in and being led. But not just being led, but being led within being led, right? Being led even after we think we know which way we're being led to go, to continually stay open and allow ourselves to be that vessel, to truly be that vessel and to be led. One of my favorite people on the planet, I love this woman, this teacher, this author, Melody Beatty. And she said there's few situations out there that can be bettered by going berserk. So when I say, let us be led and let us continue to be led, I'm talking about taking action, but I'm not talking about just taking any action just to take action. I'm talking about taking inspired action. There are a few situations that'll be bettered by going berserk. So let's not just take action for action's sake. Let's take inspired action, which requires of us being willing to be led. Knowing that Spirit is surrounding us, this creative substance of the universe is surrounding us and awaiting our participation, giving back to us that predominant nature of our thinking and our feeling state. Or as the Science of Mind reading that I asked Angie to read for today, which is actually from August 9th, as it says in there that Spirit is everywhere present and awaiting our bidding. Spirit is everywhere present and awaiting our bidding. This creative energy that infuses this unified field, if you want to take it from a quantum physics perspective, however you want to call it, the heart and mind of God, the unified field, the substance, the source of all being, this that moves through and connects all of life, gives life out of itself, is forever waiting on us to contribute in our co-creative nature. Spirit is everywhere present and awaits our bidding. And as I was talking to Angie about the reading, we kept reading it together and we kept saying biting. We'd say bidding and then we'd say biting and then biting. Those words were like getting jumbled up in our mouths. And I think she even said biting after we joked about it this morning. She even said biting once accidentally. But so that's okay. There are no accidents. So Spirit is everywhere present and awaiting our bidding, or our biding, our time, our just waiting around. Spirit's like, okay, I'm here. Don't just get back to me when you decide you want to go a direction, when you decide you have an intention, a purpose, a passion, something you want to stand for and take action for in your life, and creating a world that works for everyone and your own individual world, because we got to start within and start with ourselves first. So the universe is just like, you get back to me on that. Okay, you let me know. So Spirit is everywhere present and awaiting our biding or our bidding. We get to choose. But let's look at the word biding, since it came up this morning. Let's look at the word biding in a positive way. Let's look at just hanging back for a second and going back to that leaning in with inspired action, not just action. Because I talk a lot about taking your time and that inspired action piece. I use the phrase practicing the pause quite a bit. You've heard me talk about it when you're feeling frustrated or angry or confused and you're writing an email or you're picking up the phone to return a call or about to return a text. Any of these things where you just want to fire something off in anger or confusion or frustration. And I say, that's a great example of where you can take and practice the pause. But let's talk about another use of practicing the pause that goes back to our biding, taking some time. Practicing the pause can also be, more importantly, can be used to tap in. See, so often we think, I got it. I was led by Spirit. I know I'm supposed to go this direction. And then we're like, this is my direction. I shall not change. So we've been led. I got it from here, divine presence, I'm good. You don't need to intervene anymore, right? We have that attitude sometimes. Instead of recognizing that practicing the pause is also about taking the time to tap in and see what that divine guidance is giving you next. What's the next turn, the next step? Lead me where I'm led. Gary has a song he's going to share with us after the talk called Lead Me Where I'm Led. And when I first heard that talk, that title of the song, I thought, that's the talk title. I'm not sure exactly where I'm supposed to go with it yet, but that's the talk title. Lead me where I'm led. And the very next day, a friend called, and she was talking about going into seminary, and she was saying, I know this is what God's put on my heart to do. I know I'm in seminary. I know this was something I was led to do. But now I'm not sure it's with these people. Well, I said, this is a great opportunity to be led within being led. I said, you were led to be where you are now, but God's guidance doesn't stop there. So being led within what you're already led to do. I said, maybe you're being called to open up to seminary in a different way, with a different teacher, in a different format. Who knows? But be open, ask for clarity, and then have the courage to act, but acting from that divine inspired action. So lead me where I'm led. I started realizing that's being willing to continually change, not just a one and done. Like I said last week, it's not a one and done deal, right? Change is a continual thing. We're continually being flung out of the nest. We're actually continually flinging ourselves out of the nest when we are dedicated to a spiritual journey of the evolution of our soul, which is what I'm all about. What we're all about here, this continual evolution of the journey of our soul, so that we can have a continual evolution of the emergence of harmony on this planet. And so I get off track on that thought. I could talk about that for a minute, but let's get back to this. So this lead me where I'm led. I think of people like Walt Disney, right? He was led to be an artist. What if he had stopped there, right? Look at what he just kept saying yes to life, yes to the universe, yes to where he was led. Lead me where I'm led next. And next thing you know, we have this Disney legacy, right? I think of as me as being a musician. When I first time I stepped on stage, I thought, this is it. I'm supposed to do this. I'm sure of it. This is my thing, right? And it was, and it is, and it continues to be. And there was a time period in there where I had a crossroads. I was like, okay, I can continue to say I am a singer-songwriter playing festivals, folk venues, and pride events, and that's it. That's my thing. That's who I am. And ignore where I was being led within the being led. Or I could do what I did, and I could say, wow, that native style flute really speaks to me. I'm gonna play around with that. I don't know how that's going to fit into a folk show, a rock show, any kind of acoustic guitar show, but I'm going to figure it out. Or not, but I'm going to say yes to it right now, and I'm going to see where it leads me. Then somewhere in there before that, I picked up the harmonica, and continually saying yes to different instruments, but also continually being led from not just songs about heartbreak. I remember my very, very first newspaper review for my first CD. I had a couple tapes before that. I'll tell you. I'll give you a date perspective. Anyway, my very first CD, the review, very first one I got, was a good review, but there was a section in there that said, well, first of all, the CD is called No Doubts, No Fears, and it's full of doubt and fear and a lot of crying in your beer songs over broken hearts. So the woman that wrote the review was a good review, and then she gets to the end and she said, but basically what I'd like to say to Snow is, if you could get in a good relationship or just not be in one altogether, you have the potential to be a songwriter that makes a difference, like Joni Mitchell, whom I love. And I was like starstruck at the thought. She just kind of sort of insulted me and compared me to Joni Mitchell at the same time. I'm going to go with it. But it woke me up, right? And I started saying, okay, I'm singing about negative stuff that's making people want to just put covers over their head. And so I started realizing I had a responsibility to what I was putting out there in the form of lyrics. So I started being more conscious of that. My lyrics became more introspective, and then I learned about the co-creative process. And then it became harder to write songs, but a lot more fulfilling. Anyway, my point is, I was led to be a musician. I'm so glad I didn't stop there, because I kept saying yes to where I was led within that framework of being a musician, and I became folk, rock, new thought, native style flute, all these different things became part of who I am. And who knows what's to come next? I don't know. Electric guitar maybe one of these days, who knows? But the point is, continue to be led within where you're already led. I think of my wife, Angie. She's an event planner. And in the beginning, she did all kinds of events. And then she started realizing where she felt fulfilled and where she didn't. Pay attention to where you feel fulfilled and where you do not. What's sucking your energy and what's giving you more? And she realized, wow, somebody's got to do it, but wedding planning, not for me. Brides are crazy. And so are parents sometimes. And so in her experience. And so she was like, I'm not, unless it's a dear friend, I'm not doing that anymore. And since then, I think she's done 2 or 3 from a personal request from me and a friend. But anyway, so, but learning and evolving, and where that took her, the leading within the being led, where it took her is to realize, wow, I actually am being led to really focus on the events that I create, right? Bringing that focus laser sharp instead of just a overhead fluorescent light. It brought it into laser focus, what she wants to do by being led within being led. It's about staying open, not having a one and done change, thinking I'm done with change, continually embracing it. Or as the Bible says in Romans 12:2, to be renewed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In the Science of Mind magazine this past week, it was on Wednesday, they quoted that verse, Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then it goes on to say that Holmes actually explains this verse metaphysically. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who founded the Science of Mind teaching, he explains this verse metaphysically by writing, the renewing of the mind is a scientific act as the conscious thought pours truth into the subjective channels of creative energy. The body is automatically renewed. This is a mental healing. I'm going to repeat that. The renewing of the mind is a scientific act as the conscious thought pours truth into the subjective channels of creative energy. As the conscious thought pours truth into the subjective channels of creative energy, as we choose our conscious thought and pour it through our subconscious mind and through the subjective channels, the creative energy, that is a renewing, but that's called a mental healing. It's not just pretty words. It's actually how we describe mental healing. Be transformed by the renewing. It is a scientific act of renewing. It's about being conscious of what we're conscious about. My friend Andy Anderson has a song that's I'm always thinking, and you're always thinking. But do you really think what you think about, right? Being conscious of our conscious thought. Consciously affirming the world that we want to live in, not the one we fear living in. Consciously affirming the life that we want to live personally, not just the one, and not at all the one that we fear personally, right? Continually bringing ourselves back, turning away from and coming back, not putting our head in the sand and saying things don't exist that we want changed, but coming back to what it is that we want to see. It is a fine dance. It's a fine dance between this, focusing on what we want and leaning into what is. It's a fine dance, and it's an important dance. I'm going to speak more about that in a second. But speaking of dancing, when we take dancing lessons, first one of the things they'll tell you is if you're the person being led, such as our dance with the divine, show up and be led. Show up and be willing to be moved, is what they say. Your job is to show up and be willing to be moved. That's our job in our dance with the infinite, is to keep showing up and be willing to be moved, to be led. Lead me where I'm led, to be led within the leading, continually showing up, being pliable to the urging of spirit, being pliable, porous to the urging of spirit. I know one practice that can remind us to practice the pause and inevitably practice the presence in doing so. And that one is practicing the praise. Lots of P's today. Practice the praise, to practice the pause, to practice the presence. But practicing the praise, that's being grateful for the twists and the turns, right? Not such a rigid dancer that you're stepping on their feet and they're stepping on yours, but being able to flow with the twists and turns, and not just flow with them, but be grateful, looking for the good in the twists and the turns. Recognizing that between here and there is the good. Between here and there, between the notes is where you hear the music. So, that sounded really country. Comes out of me once in a while. I am from rural North Carolina. Anyway, between the notes is where you hear the music. Between here and there, we tap in. That's the space where we hear the music, but that's the space where we stop. Look, listen, tap in to the divine source moving through us. Practicing the praise helps us do that. Practicing being grateful for the twists and turns helps us to remember to practice the pause, to look and feel for that inspired action. When something's off, stop, right? You take a new job and you've told everybody and you're so excited and you get there and you think this is going to suck the soul right out of me. Stop. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. Moving through me at all times is that which I need. And so I'm going to say yes to what sets my soul on fire, and I'm going to continually release what does not. If something feels off in a conversation, in a relationship, stop. If I'm not being respected, if I'm not being honored, if I'm not being treated with dignity, stop. I get to reassess, is that a relationship that I want? My relationships are harmonious and mutually fulfilling and nurturing, and I'm so grateful for that. And that's my baseline. If it doesn't meet that, it doesn't come into the friend zone. It just doesn't happen, right? So if something feels off, stop. In the military, the word surrender literally just means to lay down your weapons and wait for further instruction. To be able to continually say, lead me where I'm led, we have to stop sometimes. Lay down our weapons and wait for further instructions by tuning into the divine moving through us as the inspired action. And what are our weapons? Our weapons, man, those are anything that's not being compassionate with self and others. Those are our weapons we use. We use them most often on ourselves, but sometimes on other people too. And we use them a lot when we feel like we're getting close to someone proving that we're not okay. Usually it's a game that we play in our own head. But when we feel that we're leaning in dangerously close to that land of not okayness, I'm not good enough, I'm going to be found out, someone's judging me, we feel judged, we feel hurt, we feel unseen, we feel like we don't matter, any of those things. Ooh, different people respond differently sometimes. Some cry, some rage, some blame, some attack, some defend, some withdraw, some protect. But all of it is, in a sense, all of these things are weapons that we use in a way that's not being compassionate with ourselves. Because what really is being called for right now is a deep okayness, a deep surrender into, a stop, release, allow, a surrender, a leaning into whatever is in that moment. We just finished the Jeff Foster class last week, The Deepest Acceptance, such a beautiful, beautiful book. And we talked about how two things are true. One, I love the Abraham Hicks quote that says, nothing's more important than you feel good. Absolutely. Keep focused on that. As you feel good, you raise your vibration. As you raise your vibration, it ripples out. So nothing's more important than that you feel good. And at the same time, we don't mean that in a way that is putting anyone else's needs below yours. And here's the part that goes back to Jeff Foster. We're also realizing that simultaneously needs to exist with not resisting what is. Not resisting what is. If you have a cold, lay down. Take a nap. If you have a frustration, breathe. Right? Doesn't mean we stop having a future forward momentum of feeling good, of creating good, but we also are being with what is. Because you see, if we resist it, if we just go to the rage or the cry or the shutdown or the protect or the blame, defend, if we resist what is presenting itself, it will persist. It will continue. Why? Because we are giving it our energy. If we do that, we are staying identified with the old paradigm. I talked last week about changing paradigms. If we are defending, protecting, blaming, judging, raging, all of these things, that's against being compassionate with ourselves and others, and all of these things that's against the current moment as it is, when we are in that place, we are identifying with the old paradigm. We're not identifying with the new world that works for everyone, with the new beautiful passion that we want to say yes to. if we are still fighting with the old. So I get that it's a dance, but I promise you, if you are pliable to the urgings of Spirit and you show up and you prepare to be moved every single day, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? I'm here to be a vessel. I'm here to be a stand for love. When you show up that way every day, you continue to be able to do this dance. It feels paradoxical. It feels like, how are these things existing? They are. And it's important. And when we can do that, we are able to say, lead me where I'm led. We're able to say, as this beautiful song you're about to hear, we're able to live from this place where he says something like, he's talking about Karen Drucker, Jamie Lula, and Eddie Watkins Jr. and their music in this next song he's going to share. I thought it was so cute how he says, Karen says, I'm too blessed to be stressed. Jamie says, love is my religion. Eddie says, I'm the place where God shows up. So as we live our life, continually coming back to this place of undefended, open, pliable to the urging of Spirit, showing up, being willing to be moved, saying, lead me where I'm led, even within the thing I think I already know. I'm going to continually release what I think I know, and be open to what I could know next, what I could move to next. Then we can be in a place where we're singing Karen's song, I'm too blessed to be stressed. Where we're singing Jamie's song, love is my religion. Where we're singing Eddie's song, I am the place where God lives. Moves and breathes and has its being. That is me, that is you. That's what we're here to do, to lean in and say, yes, lead me where I'm led next. Thank you, God. And so it is.